Yo, what's up guys, Balgus here, and I just want to start off today's video by thanking everybody for all the comments and likes and things I've been getting on my recent content. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad you've been enjoying some of the series I've been making recently, and I'm going to try and stick to this daily upload schedule going forward. And it's quite a special day today, it's my birthday, so if you do been liking the content and you want to see more of the similar stuff, throw a subscribe and a like, I'd really appreciate it. And in the comments section, if you want to see different types of content or maybe some of the same content with different units, like leave a comment on what you'd like to see and I'll give a work on that. But recently I made my Guild Boss videos and they received some good feedback, and some of the DMs I received were things like, what if I don't have Jericho, or what if I don't like Jericho, is there other options that I can use to score well on Guild Boss and not hold my guild back while trying to get into that 1% for the rewards and get that 1200 a week so you can get the rerolls and stuff like that for the gear. And so I was thinking who would be good to do, and I decided to choose Athur for this showcase because I know Athur's in a lot of people's PvP teams at the minute, so maybe people, now Jericho's fallen out of the meta, don't want to invest in her anymore, and if you're not in a hardcore guild, and they'd be much more likely to be okay with investing into Athur because they're using him in the PvP teams as well, so it doubles up and gets dual use. So I did decide to choose Athur, and I do like Athur a lot, so I'll show you how I did this for Athur, and I'll show you the gear I used for the videos. Okay, so here's my stat page for Athur, and as you can see, he has around 8,300 attack, which is in the current set I'm using. Some of the stats he has as well, he has 23% pierce rating, 53% crit chance, which is going to be very important for why this is such a good unit to use for Guild Boss, because if you look at how his ultimate works, it does sever damage, so it does 2 times the crit chance, so because he has 53% crit chance, he'll crit the boss nearly all the times, and he has like 19% crit damage. So because he'll always quit as well, it'll help you speed the runs up. So the sets I use are attack, damage and crit damage set. I have on the left side rolled into pure attack damage, and on my right side you can see I've rolled it onto crit damage. I'll just show you my left sides. Yeah, it's nothing super special, it's just decent. So yeah, it's pretty much the gear I'm going to use for the runs. Alright guys, so I did forget to mention before, I'm using crit damage food, and obviously I'm using the standard team of Gotha, Freeze unit, Helbram and the DPS unit, which is Athur in this case. So the things you need to try and hit to maximise the output for the run, it's pretty much the same as it is for Jericho. Like, you need to get the gold Helbram buff, which is obviously going to give you pierce rating, it's going to give you crit damage, crit chance, and because it gives you the crit chance as well, and Athur gets double crit chance on his ultimate, you're never going to fail to crit with your ultimate on the normal mode, which means that it's very easy to set a very high score and you don't have to mess around doing 200 runs trying to get Slater to crit or someone like that. So it's pretty helpful if you've got limited time. So yeah, the second thing you're going to need is you're going to need the gold freeze, obviously, because obviously the increased damage, and without the gold freeze your crits do nowhere near as much damage because it's 200% compared to the 80% from getting like a silver freeze. Now this is where you can use either part. You can either use, ideally you want to use the gold Athur buff because obviously it's going to give 30% base stats, which gives you increased attack damage for 30%, but you can also use the gold Gopher buff because that gives you 20% base stats, and unfortunately they don't stack with each other, so you basically just have to go for whichever is the best for you, or whichever you get the highest of on the run. But when you're using the gold Athur and things like that, as you can see in this run, I buff up before the last turn because it's quite helpful for removing the poison and things like that, so your other units can lifesteal back up to try and get as high HP as possible to end this run with like really high HP. Or also if like your Gotha gets poisoned, you can use the Athur buff, say turn 2 or 3, to remove the poisons, and then it gives you that extra chance to get some extra stacks of the Gotha buff, which is going to increase your damage output of the run by quite a lot. And yeah, you basically just have to try and aim for as many Gotha stacks as you possibly can get. Like, I think in this run I had 3 Gotha stacks, but 2 or 3 stacks is probably the best you're going to hope for. One's better than nothing, but if you don't manage to get any Gotha stacks, or you decide to hit Gotha on the last turn, It's quite unfortunate, and you might have to give it a couple of tries, but it does make a big difference, as you're going to see with the Athur crit that's about to happen. So I do the setup as usual, the buffs and the freeze, and 1.29 million for Athur crit on that ultimate, which is probably as much as a lot of Jerichos do. So if you do invest into Athur, he does quite a lot of damage. So let's just go into the hard run now. So we're into the hard mode run now, and as you can see, the team lineup's changed a little bit. Instead of the Hellbrum, we now use the Green Merlin because she's much more effective on the hard boss for delaying the ultimate and things like that. So let's just get into the tactics that you're going to want to do for the hard boss. So obviously you need to get the gold Athur buff as usual. Now it's even more important if you get it early to use it earlier on the hard mode, because the increased defensive stats will stop the shields from breaking, which is going to be helpful in a minute. You'll know why. You also need the gold freeze buff as usual. You want to try and delay the boss's ultimate as much as possible using Merlin and go for ultimate, so that you can stop him from ultimate in you, which is going to help you keep Gopher shielded. Now this is probably the most important part for scoring really high with Athur on hard mode, because you don't have the extra damage buffs. You need to get the Gopher passive stacks, and as you can see on the run that I did, I actually managed to keep Gopher shielded the entire fight, so that I think he has 3 or 4 passive stacks at the end of this fight, which is super important. So other than that, you want to try and keep your team as healthy as possible. So for instance, like on the end of this fight, my Gotha is pretty high health, Merlin's pretty high health, Arthur's pretty high health, but my Gustav is quite low health. So again, I try and throw out a high level Merlin shield just to make sure make sure that Gotha still keeps all his passive stacks for the next attack that's going to hit me, and then I delay his ultimate again. And now on the last turn, because I have the gold freeze and the gold Athur buff, I actually have an extra spot to use. So I'm actually going to cast my Gustav ultimate, which is going to lifesteal him back up above 50% so that I get the extra bonus points. So what I'll do is I'll Athur buff, then I'll use the Gustav ultimate, then I'll gold freeze, and then I'll Athur ultimate for that to finish him off. So I've got the extra 30% bonus from that. Gustav's going to lifesteal back up above 50% with this ultimate now, because the gold Athur buff removed the unhealable debuff on him. Then I'm going to freeze him, and then Athur's going to ulti in. Now he's going to have a very much higher chance to crit than most of the units against this boss, because the boss has a 40% passive crit reduction, but because Athur gains double crit, he's still going to crit most of the time. Now as you can see, he only does 685 that time, which is a lot lower than usual, but it's still pretty good for hard mode, and I get a good score. So cheers guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you tomorrow.